Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 21 Hats podcast. I'm Lauren Feldman, your host. Every week, I sit down with three business owners to talk about the challenges they're facing. It's the kind of conversation you don't often hear in public. Our panelists address difficult topics like why their business isn't making as much money as they think it should, why their digital marketing isn't working, or why exactly they hired their brother-in-law. Owning a business can be a lonely and isolating pursuit, but at least you'll know that you're not the only one facing these issues. Got a question you'd like us to address? Send it to us and follow us on Twitter at 21_hats or on our website, 21hats.com. Let's meet this week's 21 Hats podcast lineup. With us today are Laura Zander, CEO of Jimmy Bean's Wool, a digital version of a neighborhood yarn shop that is based in Reno, Nevada. Jay Goltz, who has several businesses in Chicago, including a picture framing shop, artist frame service, and a home furnishing store, Jason Home. And please meet Dana White, who is with us for the first time. Dana is founder of a chain of hair salons based in Detroit that specializes in helping women with thick and curly hair. In creating the salons, Dana adopted the principles of lean to make them operate as efficiently as possible and to allow women to walk in without scheduling an appointment. Dana has 2 locations in Detroit and big ambitions to take the chain national. Welcome to the podcast, Dana.
Thank you, Lauren. Good to be here.
We're excited to have you here. Jay and Laura, as always, feel free to jump in, but I want to start by introducing Dana and talking a little bit about how she got into this. Dana, but before you opened this business, you, correct me if I'm wrong, you were an international labor relations specialist?
Yes, I was.
Which meant, what exactly did that entail?
So it started with me working on behalf of a labor union for, healthcare workers. It started with healthcare workers, then it went from there to teachers. And then before I knew it, I was teaching people in the Middle East how to negotiate contracts, how to have a healthier workplace environment, even though there were, labor issues that, here in America, we would cringe at the thought, but over in the Middle East, it can be quite different. So my job was to go over there and help workers manage that.
So given that experience, I assume that managing your employees at your own business has been the easiest thing possible?
No, absolutely not. I mean, it's been helpful when it comes to having an eye or an ear towards the needs of my staff and putting that up top. But for the most part, labor, it just depends on the industry, and a lot of it depends on the culture around the industry. And so having, textile worker culture or a teacher culture or a healthcare worker or a nurse's culture has not helped me in the beauty industry. And if it has, it's been minimal.
So how did you get into the beauty industry? What prompted this?
Yeah, so my own experience and the experience of that of my family. So I was working over the Middle East, and I made a hair appointment here in Michigan because I lived in New York at the time, and I was coming to visit my family, and I had to get my hair appointment before I could get my flight. So to call back and say, hey, can we reschedule this flight so I can make my hair appointment? No, that didn't fly. So instead of flying directly to Detroit to spend more time with my family, I actually flew into New York, was there for a couple of hours in a place where you could walk in and get your hair done, go back to the airport, and then catch a flight out to be with my family. And so my family had issues of their own in regards to moving appointments, and it was just too much. So I decided, there are salons in New York where you can walk in, but they weren't very deliberate about your time. They weren't very deliberate about their customer service or the products that they were using. So I decided to take that model that had been around since the 80s and bring it into the new century. And Apparently Boyd was born.
Jay, you've had that experience with having to balance your flights with your hairstyling, right?
Yeah, well, my pilot's gotten fairly, easy to work with. He understands the importance of my hair, so we've worked it out.
Dana, I understand the need that you saw there. What made you think that this was, a problem that you could address?
I still don't know if it's a problem that I'm addressing. No, I felt because it wasn't being done, and if not me, then who? If not now, then when? So why not? All you'll have to lose is your life savings, and you'll have to start all over and live.
Amen.
What I have to lose, right? So I did it, and 7 years later, here we are, looking to go national or a franchise. So that's, I didn't really think I could do it, but I did think I could try.
You didn't just open another hair salon. You tried to open a place that operated differently. And if I recall correctly, you actually called on some friends in the auto business that helped you think through, almost from a manufacturing perspective, how you handle your customers.
Yeah, it wasn't enough to just have a space that was walk-in only 7 days a week, right? While my guests were in the salon, I had to find the best way to be very deliberate about their time. So I had two friends who were automotive engineers, and lean was their thing, and say, hey, what's the best and fastest way to get the shampoo out of the bottle? Where should I put the towels? Where should I put the shampoo? How should I blow dry the hair to get them in and out in a certain amount of time? What should we say on the phone? What should we use to cash them out, and what should be the script? So everything, I literally took it from the time they walked in to the time they walked out. And of course, you can just have somebody come up to the door and not say anything, right? That's quick. But we had to balance having great customer service, giving quality service, and then getting them in and out in a certain amount of time. And then how could I do all of this affordably?
So is this, just to ask a quick clarifying question, is this like a high-end Fantastic Sam's kind of thing?
I get that, right? Yeah, it's like a great clips for women with thick and curly hair, but it's high end. It's like it's really nice, and they're like, wow, and it really is deliberate about it being focused on the health care of the hair. We have a lot of women who have thinning issues. They have a lot of women who have color or damage issues. So we don't cut or color, we trim. And so for the ladies who have color, they come into our salon and get a steam treatment. It makes the color last longer. It keeps the hair more hydrated. So a lot of our guests find that after like 3 or 4 visits with us, they're seeing a noticeable change in the health of their hair.
We've all seen these commercials on TV for years with the hair salons, and it seems like they come, they go. Can you give us an idea in the franchise model in the hair salon business, like the Fantastic Sam's? There's probably been not 100, but I can probably think of 3 or 4 that I've seen come over the last 20 years, and I don't even know if they're all in business still. Could you give us a snapshot as to how that whole franchise model thing has worked?
Yeah, so I think in the past I think it's also the market that the market that they target. Women can be much more involved in their hair salon. Don't get me wrong, men can too. Men have, I have family members that go to the same barber they've gone to when they were 8, right? Now they're 50. But I think that the franchise model, I want to say it failed because you still have some super cuts and some bow ricks and some great clips, but I think it was too blanketed and it wasn't tailored enough, right? I think they had general haircuts, right? It was very business, right? Just get you in and out, give you a good haircut. I don't think they, focused on the quality of the products they were using for the hair health. And then I'm not sure if they really had to, right? Because I don't know that market. But I think where that failed was, for example, our level of customer service is my managers are taught listening exercises. So when you hear a guest in the chair speaking of their father that's sick in the hospital, you're going to get a call from us in a couple of days. How's your dad? Right? Wow. Or my daughter, is going to homecoming, couple of days. How was homecoming? I just had a job interview. How'd that interview go? So I don't think that they were doing that. And then what I'm concerned with is how do we do it when we get busier and when we scale? If we go up to seeing 100 guests per salon and managing that volume, how do we keep that personal? The other thing is that my market has never seen anything like this before.
What do you mean when you say my market, Dana?
So women with thick and curly hair. You talk to women with thick and curly hair and they go and make an appointment at a salon and they're upcharged, right? Or that takes them longer because your hair is curly, so you're here. Right now, my market is predominantly African American, but we have a lot of redheads. We have a lot of women of Indian and Middle Eastern descent, because when they go and make an appointment at a regular salon, they are charged more. Their appointment is longer. So, yeah.
God, you are a genius.
Thank you.
Sorry,
no, Laura,
no,
you're a genius.
No.
You are.
Dana, I think it's worth emphasizing that from day one, you've been thinking about this as something that you want to go big with. And, it wasn't you opened one salon just to try to build a business and make a living that way. In fact, you've created custom technology that you might sell to other hair salons, but that would make it possible for you to manage your customers along the lines of what you were just saying, so that if a customer walked into your shop in Detroit and then a month later into a shop in Brooklyn or somewhere else, that person in the next shop would know exactly who this customer is and how to treat them.
Yep, because it's all about, we collect data now, and I've just thought of technology that will allow us to collect data on a bigger scale. And I think it comes down to, that's where we're going in business. If you're not looking at artificial intelligence, if you're not looking at data collection on the front end as well as the back end, I think there's got to be room in everybody's business to collect data, because that kind of lets you know how you grow. I want to solve this problem everywhere. Right? Because everywhere I've gone, I've not been able to have it solved consistently. So I want to solve this problem everywhere consistently. Right before I opened, I drove from New York City to the Grand Canyon in a Chrysler hatchback, or not a hatchback, with a minivan. And I was in Iowa. And I asked women there with thick and curly hair, where do you get your hair done? How long does it take? How much does it cost? And resoundingly, it was the same thing. And I've noticed that hair care has not evolved for this market in well over 50, 60, 70 years. So that was my impetus to go ahead and start it, and see if it'll work in my, original hometown. Like, I'm from Kalamazoo, but I lived in Detroit for years, and then take it from there.
As you know, the idea of the 21 Hats podcast is to have the kind of conversations with business owners that you don't often hear in public. So let me put you on the same hot seat that I put Jay and Laura and our other regulars on. Is your business, and by that I mean the two existing locations in the Detroit area, is it making as much money as you think it should?
No, it's not. It's not.
And why not?
Do you want the Dr. Phil answer, or do you want the...
I want the Dana White answer.
Okay. The Dana White answer is two reasons. One, I believe it is the market. And then that's just not my business. It's several business owners in the Detroit metropolitan area, especially in the Detroit area, that are saying Detroit is not as ready for small business comeback as it would like to be. It's coming back, but it's not where it needs to be for all of these businesses to thrive. That's restaurants, hotels, service industry.
Well, let's be specific about that, though. The question is why? Because there's not enough. I have a very similar story to yours. I started a picture framing business. It was a big hit. I opened a store in the suburbs. The numbers weren't as good as I thought, and then I realized I was in the wrong neighborhood. I opened a third store, and it was much better. So the question is, when you say they're not ready, quote unquote, for small business, is because the density of the customer isn't there? Okay, that's a legitimate.
Yeah, and it's something that I went out to explore with my lender, with other business owners. I'm a Goldman Sachs 10 KSB alum. It was something that the business advisors that you keep in touch with, they were saying amongst their graduates that the density isn't there, that a lot of the restaurants wouldn't survive if they didn't cater. Because the people aren't coming in from the suburbs. They're not coming in from the suburbs and staying to eat. And if they are, they're only going to the bars and restaurants that they know. They're not going to pay, $20 for a steak. They're going to pay $10 to $12 for a steak. So that's from the restaurant. For my specific purpose, I don't think I did a good enough job managing the expectations and putting out through marketing, which I'd done very little of, who we are and how we're different. That transition hasn't quite happened. For some of my guests, yes, but for other of my guests, no. They want the traditional salon, but they want to be walking only 7 days a week, but they don't know what it who they have to be or what it takes in order for that to be there. So for example, you can't come to the salon and bring 4 kids and serve them dinner in the lobby in a walk-in only salon, right? Because you're not going to be there that long, right? We can't give you a color appointment-based salon. And so they come in and they want a color. So they think it's either go to my stylist or go to Paralee Boyd, which I'm trying to show them that you go to both.
So have you studied Jimmy John's at all? Because I hear a lot of similarities there and the education of the customer and kind of creating a new segment of the market that takes a while for people to understand, and catch on.
And the Dr. Phil answer is, I got tired and I did the minimum.
You're saying it's when you got tired, it was the marketing that fell through the cracks?
When they got tired, it was the growth, meaning, okay, do more for data compilation, do more for updating your training, everything that kind of moves the business forward. I did less of that and did the things that move the business forward, every day, payroll, right? Supply ordering, inventory.
There are certain blocks in Chicago, Halstead, if you're familiar, literally every other storefront is empty. Every other storefront. Now, you go to other streets, that's not the case. And it seems obvious to me, but you don't hear it talked about. My belief in the city these days, you better have one of two things. You better have high rises or you better have parking. If you got neither, you don't have enough customers. And the problem with Halstead, where I'm talking about, is there's neither. And the reason why there are very few restaurants left in Lincoln Park, which no one thinks about, it's simple. Permit parking. All of these side streets that people used to park in when they went to dinner all have permits now. You can't park there unless you're a resident. There's nowhere for people to park their car. Therefore, the restaurants are not what they used to be. And I would think a hair salon's the same thing. If you're near some high rises, you got heavy density or they drive. So I got to think that's one of the key elements to where the right location is.
Does that apply to you, Dana?
Yep. Our high rises are businesses. So what I'm going to do is, like, the DMC is across the street, Detroit Medical Center. Blue Cross Blue Shield is down the street. What I'm going to do is open at 7 a.m.
Wow.
Validate parking.
Smart.
That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to open at 7 before they have to be there at 9, and I can get you out by 8:30. So you have plenty of time. So open at 7 a.m., validate parking, take away the challenges. But what I had to do, because again, my Dr. Phil portion of this is that I got burnt out. So that means staff wasn't as quality. Now that I've been reinvigorated, I have a great staff right now. Now we can start talking to them about opening at 7 a.m. and not worry about losing people.
How did you get reinvigorated?
Well, first thing, my mom is huge. So my mother walked in and called me. She got her hair done and said, "Oh, no, 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 no." She called me and said exactly what she said. She said, "Oh, no, 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 no." And so I walked in and I was never happy and I never wanted to be there. And I'm like, if you don't want to be there, then close. Well, no, you don't want to close. So I had to make a very hard decision and I had to fire a manager, and that was ugly. I hired an operations person who would oversee my new manager, that manager that oversees both locations. And I had to not be afraid to command respect. I got so, and it was something I learned at Small Giants, is that I'm managing people that used to bully me. So I was like me. And so it was this weird dynamic that I had to get rid of in order to make this turnaround in my business.
You were allowing them to bully you.
Well, when I was a kid, they were. But now, when I grew up, it was like that baggage was still there. And I learned that at the Small Giants conference that was here in Detroit. I was like, oh my goodness. So yeah, it's learning to be the boss.
So Dana, I want to talk about the marketing aspect a little bit. I think you did say that you haven't done as much of that as you probably should have. Why is that?
Money and lack of confidence and actually knowing if I know what to do. I know how I want the ads to look. And I've actually tried. But again, in this environment, you're looking at marketing companies that want you to pay $12,000 a month to try. because they're used to your Art Vans, your Suburban Chevrolets, your Little Caesars Pizza, your Meyer Thrifty Acres, which is a huge grocery store chain here. So if you guys know of a small marketing firm, there's a ton of small businesses here that would love to give them business.
I can tell you the problem because I've lived through it for 40 years. The problem is they can't make money on little accounts. They can't make enough money on them. So you are forced, and this is what I've done, to kind of learn how to do it yourself and get that graphic designer. And
I want to hear from someone who's had a lot of success doing exactly that, and that's Laura Zander. Laura, you really got your business off the ground through digital marketing, if I recall, especially YouTube videos. Is that right?
Yes. And then we've transitioned into, print marketing and more traditional marketing as well. What's worked really well for us is teaming up with a college, and finding college, either interns or as Jay said, graphic designers, working with a business professor and getting their whole class to do a project on your business. You've probably explored that. So.
Well, I spoke at USC last year, and they have opened up both communications college and their business college. So I literally just posted that internship last week for January.
Oh, perfect.
There are people out there in the world who they're mission driven, and they would love to. I have them working for me. They love what they do here. It's like they could go work at a big ad agency and be in an ad factory to where they're just doing one little piece getting yelled at by the art director, or they can sit here with the owner of the company and a couple of other people and brainstorm and figure out the ad and do it and execute it. And it's a wonderful thing for those people. But you got to find the people that want to be in that environment because they can make more money at the big ad agency. That's the reality.
The other talent pool, Dana, that I have really pulled from, and you might have similar experience, are my own customers. So my customers are more passionate about my product than just about anybody else. And you'd be amazed at, I'm sure your customers are doctors, they're lawyers, they're graphic designers, they're stay-at-home moms, they're people who are smart and talented. And some of them, like Jay said, don't want to go work at an advertising agency and might be willing to either trade or, they're going to be your best advocates and your best marketers, at least in my experience.
Have you also made use of your customers as, to use the phrase influencers, people who you're not actually paying to market your business, but who share what they create with your yarn, for example?
Oh, totally. Yep. That's the new, and that's what I was thinking about when Dana was talking about, whether it's Fantastic Sam's or Great Clips, is that I'm not sure that those franchises are still relevant and have not turned the corner in terms of kind of the digital, social existence and social marketing. And that seems like a huge hole and a huge opportunity for her business is to really take advantage of that and jump in with both feet. Yes. So influencers, people who are just active. We're really focused on the micro influencers right now. So we're kind of dedicating a percentage of our time and energy to what I call like the A-listers, but it's the B and the C-listers that, it's the Rocky story. They're the ones who are going to fight the hardest and who are going to work really hard for you and that we want to support because our whole goal is to get these B and C listers into the A-list.
How do you do it? How do you encourage people to share spread the word?
It's not, you just be you and just be real and be honest and be supportive and you communicate and it's just human. It's golden rule. Just be a good person, and support people. And if you like what they do, interact with them and see if there's stuff you could do together. And
I'll tell you what I see all the time that surprised me. You go to these websites and it says about us. So you hit about us thinking I'm going to hear about Laura's story and you don't even hear the name of who owns the company. They just go on, oh, we've been dedicated to blah, the typical advertising baloney. They don't even tell you who they are. So just if you're just authentic and say, hey, my name's Jay Golton. I started this business because I thought I could give a better product and blah, 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 or whatever. People are interested in your story if it helps them and what you do does help them. So I do think there's an opportunity to stand out because a lot of companies aren't doing it.
Yeah, that's, Lauren, you were talking about marketing and yes, the digital marketing has been a big thing for us. But 17 years in, and now just we're on our third evolution. What has really pushed this third evolution are the relationships that we've built over the last 17 years. So it's not the digital marketing. It's the fact that we've always been nice to people.
Tell me, Laura, at one point when I was at Forbes, we did a short story about you guys and the success you were having with Facebook's lookalike ads, which is where you basically upload your the emails for your existing customers, and they come back to you with customers who have similar demographics based on their Facebook profiles, and you can target ads at this similar audience to the one that you already have. I'm curious. I think you've moved away from that, and I'm curious why. And I'm also curious whether you think that would be effective for Dana and actually for Jay too.
So the reason that we've moved away from it is I believe that, or at least my observation over the last 15 years of kind of what's happening with digital marketing is that, like fashion, things come in fashion and then they fall out. And it's something, Snapchat comes in and everybody's on top of it and they're all loving it and they pounce on it to the point where, and this is the case, in my opinion, of Facebook advertising. In the beginning, it was kind of raunchy. It was kind of, it wasn't very attractive. It wasn't organic. It wasn't authentic. We happened to kind of jump into it when it was at its high and its most organic and most effective. And then the effectiveness started to wear off because everybody jumped on that bandwagon. And so then it becomes, kind of, I don't know what the right words are, not dirty, but, it just became so commercial that it isn't really
trite.
It's very trite, and it's just not a game that we want to play anymore. So sure, we're still playing it, and we're still doing some, and we're participating, but that's not where our focus is. So our focus is now, what's next? How do we get in on not necessarily the beginning, because the early adopters are the ones who end up spending way too much money for way too little. But trying to get in on the tail end of the early adoption and the beginning of kind of the mass curve. So you see it with Instagram advertising now, it's so saturated. It's fantastic and it's useful. And I think it's probably at its peak, in my opinion, but it's going to start turning people off here pretty soon. And we're all going to start ignoring it. And we're all going to find a different platform to go to. So do I think it would be helpful for them? Sure, maybe dabble in it a little bit, especially if you can do, you'll do some localized advertising. But I personally, right now, am a big fan of going back to billboards, going back to print, going back to 1980s, 1990s stuff that nobody else is looking at.
The key also, though, she's got a storefront, and that's got to be the top way to get new customers, people going by your storefront. And I saw a salon in Chicago. It was very funny. They had a big picture of Christopher Walken that says "Walken's welcome," and it was funny. And using the storefront to get attention, that's why we all pay a lot of rent to be on a storefront. And most people's front windows are not really doing much, and I think they could be doing more with it. And the signage. Signage is still critical.
Signage, and then doing the classic grassroots marketing. And I'm sure you've done this, Dana, but that's, going to the church groups and giving a presentation, going to the Girl Scouts meeting and giving a presentation. And it doesn't, I got a lot of eyeballs on me, not because of knitting locally, but because of the business side of it. So you don't have to talk about hair. Don't do a presentation on hair necessarily. You go do a presentation on what it's like to be a female business owner in the up and coming Detroit community. And you end up, and maybe you already have, but you end up on the cover of Detroit Magazine. That would be my goal. Because as I always say, every person that reads Reno Magazine knows someone who knits. And so if I can get my face out there and my name out there with an unusual business, something that you don't typically see, it's going to stick.
Laura, I think also the secret with your YouTube videos was that they were not ads at all. What you were actually doing was providing guidance, helping your customers solve problems and figure things out and do what they love to do better. And First of all, am I right about that? And second of all, I'm thinking there's got to be a corollary to that for certainly for Dana and maybe for Jay too.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it goes back to being authentic before authentic was cool. So we opened a storefront and then we built an online segment because, like you, we're in an area that has low traffic. We don't have a huge population. It takes hours to get here from any other big city, blah, blah, blah. So for us, it was always, how do I recreate the in-store experience online? So that's through the technology that you're talking about. How do I make people feel like, how do I answer the questions that they might have when they're in the store online? And so we did that through YouTube videos in the beginning. And my husband was clever enough to realize that right when Google bought YouTube, that if we used the right keywords and we created these things strategically and did it based on product names, that Google would index us and the SEO would really help us so that when somebody looked up one of our products, our videos popped up as the first thing. But for hair and for framing and, of course, doing how-to stuff, but I also feel like that stuff's pretty saturated. I mean, we feel like that in our industry, like everybody's caught on. So what's next? I mean, I want to do virtual reality, right? So that's what's next. So how do we create some virtual reality? This is what it would look like if you got, your hair straightened.
Let's go back to the original premise. Let's do a little whiteboarding here. So what are Dana's options? Option one is keep these 2 stores, get the sales up, make a really nice living, have a nice life. Okay. Option 2 is franchise, go national. What's involved with that? What kind of commitments involved with that? What kind of potential problems? Third one is, I guess, take in an investor and own them yourself. Let's flush that out a little bit because I think that's interesting and a good time to do that.
Dana, any reaction to that?
Yeah. So I love those options. Option one, I think it's a combination of option one and option two. And I've learned recently that I don't have to do one separately from the other. They can be concurrent. Option three, taking on an investor. I tried. Right. And I don't have children, but I wasn't ready to give the promise of my children. And I hadn't found a investor who I hadn't found, as Lauren had told me years ago, which I still use to this day, is that unicorn investor. I don't think investors understand that there is still room for something new, something very new, right? I think they're used to investing into different versions of the same thing. And so when you do have something that is very new, they approach it the same way. And I think a unicorn investor will see the problem that I'm solving for, that it hasn't been done ever. And the way I'm doing it is different, and approach investing with me that way. Understanding that your returns aren't going to come in the same form had you invested in an app, that the returns are going to come differently, but this is a legacy investment. This is long term.
So I've been exactly where you're at. I did talk to a franchise consultant and I did think that whole thing out. And at the moment, I realized that most successful franchises have 3 things. They've got proprietary products. They've got a name brand that's important, that if you're traveling anywhere, you can stop into the same name that you were in your hometown or across town or whatever else. And they had some incredible system that was helpful to grow the business. And I realized in the picture framing industry, not one of those was valuable. And as a result, the franchises that have been in the frame industry have really not, they haven't really worked. And so, I would ask the question of, have you done enough research to understand what the pitfalls of franchising is? Because when you take someone's life savings and you put them in the store and it doesn't go right, they sue you. That's a problem. And I've talked to people, there's plenty of franchises that have worked great. And there's plenty that have been spectacular failures because of here's the problem I see. This is not a turnkey business. The best franchises are turnkey businesses. A moron could run them. And I don't think a moron could run your business. And I know a moron can't run a good frame business.
That's a hard call because, first of all, you can't pull somebody off the street to do hair. There has to be some semblance of training, right? You have to go to cosmetology school and have a license. So you have a foundation as far as the operators behind the chair. That's one thing. The second thing is behind the front desk, the front of the house. That can be trained, right? How to move. And that's why the technology, when it's adopted, is important because it makes it that much easier. But that can be trained. That technology, not the technology piece, but the process, that can be trained. I don't think, I think you're right to think, well, can, somebody just come in and push a button? No. But I don't know if I want a franchise like a Tim Hortons where you get a cup of coffee and you press a button for Americano, you press a button for latte.
I agree you can train those things. Here's the moron factor, though. The people that still haven't figured out it's not worth fighting with customers. They just can't stop themselves. I've seen people that they just don't get it. You can preach to them, you can train them, you can explain to them the customer's giving you their hard-earned money. It's not worth fighting with them, and they just can't stop themselves from fighting with customers. And that's what I would call a moron. Doing
what
something
do you mean,
that's
the customers. How do you?
I'm talking about you. So you get someone who's great. They're trained in hair cutting, and they're great, and they're trained, and they know all the systems. And some customer comes in that's having a bad day and says something to them that they don't like, and they get into a fight with the customer. No one's going to talk to me that way. You just get out of here. I don't need your business. It happens every day. It happens every day in retail. I see it all the time. And then when they go broke, it's never their fault. It's always the bank's fault or the government's fault or the landlord's fault. It's never their fault.
Do they have the system? My question then to them would be, I'm not setting them up to fail. I'm not saying that these franchisors are, but
you do have a system, Dana, that one of those three elements.
Yes, I have a system for everything. And I think it's also about setting up the franchisee to succeed, right? So if we're seeing that numbers are declining, we need to go in and assess why. I'm not saying that can be a process, but there's a system in place on how to deal with customers. And if you are not following that system, I think that there are, like in franchises can be pulled from a franchisee for a list of reasons or for two reasons.
And I'll tell you, if you watch the McDonald's movie, it was right there. They failed because they were starting to sell fried chicken out of them because the guy decided he should sell fried chicken. And I'm confident that successful franchisors have figured out they have to be extremely careful who they sell the franchise to.
I think when I saw the founder, it wasn't not only just the people that they hired, it was also the operating agreement. There were things they overlooked, right? And the McDonald's brothers that was not their thing, right? But Ray Kroc even said in the beginning, oh gosh, I didn't realize I'd have to tell them that they couldn't serve hot dogs, right? So their franchise agreements have to be tight. We have a way we answer the phone between 9 a.m. and noon. It's just a way we do everything, the way we post a sign, the way we everything. Like, and it works for some people, and for those it doesn't work for, we wish them on the way. We have an employee in our salon that wants to leave because they don't think they're making enough money. We have a way that we have that conversation.
Dana, as somebody who is like terrified of systems and rules and regulations, like I hate them because I want to just be able to do my own thing. How do you balance that? I also fully recognize that I need more systems in my life and more routine. So I'm not bragging. In fact, I'm sad about it. But how do you balance all of those ways you do things with a human element and
culture?
So they still have some freedom to kind of have that conversation in their way.
So our culture is not punitive. Even though we have the systems and processes in place, you're not going to get in trouble, right? Even if you've bucked the system, take a pot and pop it upside somebody's head, okay, that's a conversation. Right. And be ready to, as an owner, we are ready to deal with the consequences of somebody not doing that. However, that has not happened. Why? Because it's an interactive culture, right? It's not dictating to you. It's not, no, here's how we do it. And if you can find a better way to do it, which you probably can, or maybe not, let's talk about it and implement.
Good God, no wonder. No wonder you're so tired, or that you got so tired. This sounds like a lot of work.
It is, but it's also the front end of the work comes from hiring the right people. Once you have the right people, like I do now, the work is done, and the work comes in the documentation. And like when we debrief at the end of the night and they follow the protocol or they follow the systems or process in place, as long as we've done everything, if a customer is still upset, there's nothing we can do.
It gets back to the hiring piece, which I've lived through exactly what you're talking about. And the reality is my life is 180 degrees from where it was 20 years ago. I was putting out fires all day long 25, 30 years ago. And I finally figured out how to hire. And once you have the right people, it falls in place.
And I'm comfortable with letting them, I don't want to say fall, but letting them stumble, right? So when I hire, I'm expecting that time when you've got the person who said, you know what, I'm going to do it my way. And it's not because, Dana, I love being the boss and I love controlling and I love making everybody. No, I have learned that if you don't do things this way, things happen. So I give them that leeway of time for them to hit their head. And so when we have a very quick greeting when you call Paralee Boyd. So when you want to do the hi, thank you for calling Paralee Boyd. It's a great day. My name is, and their phone drops twice. And then now she's calling back a third time upset with you because she's had to cut you off because your greeting is so long, right? That's an example of how you bump your head, right? Or when we say, please don't, just give them a free deep conditioner. But no, because you like her and you felt bad, you've told her the next time she can come and get her hair done for free 3 weeks later. So now she keeps coming in upset and making things up about how she can't stand her service because she knows that she can. So there's all of these little things. I let you hit your head a couple times. I said, see, now do you realize why we only give a free deep conditioner within 72 hours? My experience has dictated the process. And some people think that my ego or me being on a power trip has dictated the process. No, we do things the way they are to prevent me putting out fires every day.
Laura, does that answer your question?
It does, but I'm thinking, Dana, don't franchise. Come work with me and create systems for
Laura,
us, please.
Laura, you have my number.
You said something a couple years ago when I was in New York with you and you made your presentation with Lauren and you said, I'll never forget, you said, I don't do messy. That's what you said.
Don't do messy.
Right. And I said to myself, good luck with that because business is, but you're fixing it. But I believe in your business versus mine, it makes sense to me that the franchise model could very well work.
How about you, Jay? What's going on with you? What are you figuring out this week?
I'm going through once again, for the third time, the bank thing where you figure out the right bank to pick and they're local and they do a lot of small business loans because that's where their bread and butter is. And you have a great relationship with your banker and then they get bought out. And then the next one up, you think, all right, not bad. Seemed to have been smooth. And then about 3 months later, they get bought out. And now you're back with the big bank, with the big billboards, with the rules and the guy making a decision in some other city somewhere that you don't even know who he is and you can't get straight answers. And so through no fault of my own, I'm navigating that now.
Jay, we've had a number of conversations on this podcast with other people who kind of shy away from debt. Tell us why your banker is important to you. How do you use a bank?
I think that debt is like riding a bicycle. It will get you it'll get you somewhere faster. But if you're reckless, you could fall off the bicycle and crack your head open. So I don't think anybody who thinks debt is good, debt is bad. Debt is both. Debt can be great. It can help your growth and can help you finance machinery, can help you put in new inventory, can help you, or you could use it badly and get yourself into a bind. So I've always used debt. And at this stage, I've just had here's a shocking thing. My kid's getting involved in the business now, and he started to look at the books, and he comes back to me and he says, Dad, do you realize that we're getting a review? You know, it's not an audit, but you pay extra for a review. I'm paying $27,000 a year to get the two accountants to sit in the office for about a week and go through stuff. And they've been doing it for 20 years and have never really found anything. So I'm paying $27,000 for a review, quote unquote, so that I have the bank line. Well, that pretty much is effectively doubling the interest in the bank line. So I realized, wait a second, I've got some properties that have no mortgages on it. I'm going to go get a mortgage on the property and not have to get the review and save $27,000, because they're like two different worlds. The real estate side is completely different from the business side. And, if you put down your 30% on the other side, they give you the money and they leave you alone. So I'm just figuring out how to navigate dealing with the bank thing again.
Do you think you're going to have to change banks again?
Well, it always reminds me of the fable with the fox and the scorpion. Oh, no, I'm not going to sting you. No, why would I do that? And then you get, oh, no, nothing's going to change. Oh, no, nothing's going to change. It's going to be just like it was before. And then when you get to the other side of the river, they sting you, and it's like, I is what I is. So do I think the big bank is going to start acting like the bank that they bought? No, I think we're going to be right back like the other two times, that at the end of the day, the economy is going to get a little soft, and what's the first thing they do? Go after the retailers, So that's how I was at the last bank. I got jacked around, and I found out later. I asked my banker, 10-year banking relationship. I said, "What happened? I never missed a payment." And he said, "Well, you know how it goes." I go, "No, I don't. Explain it to me." And he says, quote unquote, "The new guy didn't like retail." That was it. That doesn't happen with the local bank who needs your business. These mega banks don't need small business. They've got the retail business. They got big business. They don't need us. And even though here's a shock, the people that write the ads aren't the ones giving the loans. I know that's disappointing, but it's true. I won't even say frustrating. I'm kind of used to it. So do I think I'm going to change banks? 50-50.
Jay Galtz, Laura Zander, Dana White, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening, everybody. This episode was produced by Jess Thuberon, founder of Blank Word Productions. Remember, if you liked what you heard, tell your friends, tell your enemies, subscribe, like us, and best of all, connect with us. Follow us on Twitter at 21_hats and visit us at 21hats.com. Let us know what questions or issues you'd like to hear our panel of fearless business owners address. See you next time.